I think literally Sam Altman has set up ChatGPT 5 or ChatGPT to groom people. And I think this is inherent in how they're architecting it, which is I mean, I hate to ascribe and mind read. I think he is specifically designing this to create AI psychosis and addiction.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Vouched. Turn your AI infrastructure into production-grade software with Know Your Agent from Vouched. Check it out yourself at vouched.id/twist. Trust for agents that's built for builders like you. Coda. Coda empowers your startup by bringing words, tables, and teams together. Strategize, plan, and track goals effectively with all your valuable data in one place. Go to coda.io/twist to get started for free and get 6 free months of the team plan. And Vanta. Compliance and security shouldn't be a deal breaker for startups to win new business. Vanta makes it easy for companies to get a SOC 2 report fast. Get $1,000 off for a limited time at vanta.com/twist.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. It is Monday. It's August 11th. It is 2025. Hey, we're wrapping up the summer, which means the fall's coming back to school for many of you. But most importantly, then ski season is going to start. So I am counting the days. With me again today, Lon Harris and Alex Wilhelm.
Hey.
Welcome back, gentlemen. I hope you had a great weekend. And let's get right to the docket. I want to start with some of the culture stuff.
Sure.
What are the 2 or 3 culture kind of entertainment, media, buzzwords going around the interwebs this past couple of days?
On Sunday, the New York Times ran a piece about Mark Zuckerberg's, what they're calling it, a compound in Palo Alto, in the Crescent Park neighborhood of Palo Alto. They've combined 11 individual properties into what's sort of Mark Zuckerberg's own little neighborhood. Now, that big chunk in the middle that you see there where it's all conjoined properties, that's actually the Zuckerberg family home where Mark, his wife Priscilla Chan, and their 3 daughters live. But the rest of this neighborhood is other families they're connected to, and there's also a small private school that serves just the 14 children that live in sort of these properties in this neighborhood. And some of the properties controversially sit empty, even though there's massively high demand for housing in Palo Alto, which is rubbing some people the wrong way. There's also reportedly 7,000 square feet of underground space, which neighbors are referring to as, his bat cave. It's sort of unclear exactly what's going on down there. But construction on all of this took around 8 years. Many of the neighborhoods are complaining about, noise, construction equipment. And the other thing they add is there are complaints about the, quote, intense levels of surveillance that Zuckerberg has brought to the neighborhood. Private security roaming the streets, looking for people who don't belong, cameras pointed at all the properties in the area. So here's Zuckerberg family spokesman Aaron McLear. Mark, Priscilla, and their children have made Palo Alto their home for more than a decade. They value being members of the community and have taken a number of steps above and beyond any local requirements to avoid disruption in the neighborhood. But the reason we're talking about this is because, Jason, this story struck you. You did not like this story. You complained about it on social media. So I don't know if you want to jump in here and give us your perspective.
I think this is disgraceful. And it's meant to foment the affordable housing crisis, hatred of billionaires. And listen, nobody likes a neighbor doing construction, right? Nobody, I dispute the surveillance issue because most neighbors want there to be extra security. So if I lived near Zuckerberg and he had security outside, I'd be pretty pleased because you benefit from that. I had the same issue when I had a loft and I put a security camera outside of my door using Deep Sentinel, a company we are investors in that does live monitoring. And it was like really cool. And the HOA said, hey, you got to take that down. You can't have cameras in the hallway. I said, hey, in the group chat for the group Slack for the building, do my 2 neighbors who are impacted by it, do they want me to reverse it so it only shows mine because I'm at the end of the corridor? And do you want to have extra security? And by the way, this has got a live person who asked the person who's in the hallway, what's up? My 2 neighbors immediately, please leave it up. Please leave it up. I appreciate the extra security. This is a blind spot, whatever. And we just had a little discussion as a community. And we were like, yeah, leave it up. Because I was like, hey, this person's got a Ring doorbell. That's a camera too. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, do we want this or not? This is disgraceful because this is a level I'm going to coin super-doxing. What the New York Times did today was they super-doxed Zuckerberg. Now, we pulled up that infographic, and I felt originally like I was going to ask you guys not to pull it up, but the cat's out of the bag now.
It was in the New York Times.
It was in the New York Times. So when you look at that infographic, now what they've done is they have done this story, and they went so deep into it to tell people this is the main house. This is where the children are being taught. This is where the homeschool is. These are the other properties. Now, I knew Zuckerberg lived in Palo Alto. They've been very public. He lives in Palo Alto. I didn't know the exact address. I'm sure I could get it from public records, or I looked into it. But what this does in the age of Luigi Mangione, am I pronouncing his name correctly?
Mangione, I think.
Mangione.
In the age of Mangione, in the age of what looks like the Blackstone CEO being targeted, I still believe she was the target, not the NFL. We'll see what happens when that comes out. I'm not a conspiracy theorist here, but it does seem to add up to me that that's a distinct possibility we shouldn't take off the table. And people gloating about it. New York going through this socialism movement. Mondami saying, why do we need billionaires? And people, just showing this outright hostility. Now, you add to that the fact that that company is crushing it, his company, that they do surveillance of people as a default to serve up ads, that he's bought other large properties. And you put all this together, the New York Times is really inviting somebody to commit violence in that neighborhood by broadcasting exactly where to go. It's super-doxing. And, people will say, oh, everybody knows. Everybody doesn't know. I didn't know the street names, and I'm an insider. And when I lived in the Valley, not far away from him. This is disgraziad on the part of the New York Times and the writer. And I know the writer. And this is going to foment Zuckerberg feelings. And all it takes is a crazy person now to go there. Now, he has Navy SEALs and security beyond what any probably equivalent to a head of state, right? So the chances of somebody getting to Zuckerberg are low, but he had violent people caught at his house multiple times. It's been in the news. So why is this story important now? It is a complete rehash. Everybody knows he bought those properties. Everybody knows he did construction. Everybody knows he did construction in San Francisco on his Mission Place that he sold. Everybody knows he has some land in Kauai. Everybody knows he has Tahoe. You're really amping up people for what purpose? What is the purpose of the story? They had one person, a neighbor, who hadn't sold, and he was like, yeah, I kind of, there is no story here. 100% of people who have to deal with neighbor construction complain. 100%. I complain, you complain. What is the point of this story? Why now? Why in the age of Mangione? Why in the age of this, wealth disparity are we taking one individual and saying, where are their kids being educated? What's the exact address of these 11 homes where his children are? That's what they did. And you guys know I'm no fan of Zuck. I have plenty of criticism for him. But he's a human with a family. And now you basically have every crazy know exactly where to go. End rant.
I thought the piece was incredibly even-handed and did a good job giving a lot of space to Zuckerberg's team to talk about how he cares about the community and so forth. But I spent a lot of time in the South Bay. My sister lives there. I've crashed on couches there. I've lived summers in Palo Alto and Sunnyvale. And I think this is a pretty fair story. I think if you're going to buy that much space in the area, you're going to disrupt your community. Why is
this story done now? If you were the editor-in-chief of the New York Times, the managing editor, and you were pitched a story, tell me your justification of why now for this story. Why is this an important story to put so many resources into when there are so many other stories?
I learned a lot about how it goes if you want to build a compound inside of a city, which I thought was very interesting. He's a person in the news, Jason. He's doing things and people are talking about them. That to me is the definition of news. I understand the context about your concern about people like Luigi, but to me, reporting about tech leaders and tech communities impacting other people is a pretty standard bit of reporting here. And I think public records...
Why now? Why Jason, is this story important now?
I didn't make that call. I don't have to defend the editorial view that they took. I'm just trying to say that I thought the piece was even-handed.
We keep telling you these AI agents are out there. Whether you're ready for them or not, it is happening, folks. OpenAI just dropped agent mode, and there is a long line of startups doing the same. And your users are now handing over their information to these agents to not only log them in, but to act on their behalf. This is going to cause security concerns. There's a good chance, hey, maybe some AI agent is already in your system and it's logging in with people in your company's credentials. Well, this means you need Vouched and their KnowThat.ai platform, Vouched. And their agent bouncer is going to prevent AI agents from logging into your systems as users. This is going to be something you need because a bad actor could start hacking your system. It's the golden age for AI tools, but it's also the Wild West. And your business needs a partner to protect you. There's a new sheriff in town, and we've got a great deal for Twist listeners. Vouched wants to let you try KnowThat.ai for free. Check it out for yourself. Vouched.id/twist. You go to that URL, they know we sent you. Tell them your feedback because they're really developing this product for the future. Vouched is skating to where the puck is going. Trust for agents that's built for builders like you. You seem to think it's fair game, and I think that's an interesting term, fair game. I think that's what this is. I think the New York Times wants to foment and wants to send red meat on this issue. That's what I believe. It's for clicks and it's for a specific point of view. Because this story has been reported 100 times. So I'm still at why now? And the fact, Alex, that you say it's fair game, it was even-handed. Okay, it is fair game, I agree. It's an interesting term. And it was even-handed. Yeah, they let all sides speak. I don't disagree with that. So those are basic core tenets. But the fact that you won't answer that question, or you don't have an answer for the question of why now, I think speaks volumes to my position.
So I guess going back a second, if this is super-doxxing, Jason, then how is it also true that this has been covered ad nauseum before? Because to me, those are directly in tension with one another. Either there's something new or there's not something new.
The new thing is to put all 11 addresses and an giant infographic with the street names.
Okay. So the new thing is that they did a graphic.
Well,
they gave 11 specific addresses and pointed out where the kids are.
You could figure out from that map. They say it's the Crescent Park neighborhood of Palo Alto, which already
gives you street names.
And then there are 2 street names, and there's even it's like a map, so you could find that collective of if you set your mind to it.
No, so set your mind to it. If you open up Google Maps, you now have it.
I do think
that is something that hasn't existed. So would you have approved that, Alex? If you were the editor-in-chief, would you have approved that graphic?
Did you grow up with the phone book, Jason? Like literally the one that got sent to your house that had everyone's address in it? I mean, this used to be information that was relatively available, and there are records about this stuff. But here's my point. If you do want to have your privacy...
Let Alex finish, and then I'm going to go to you, Lon. So nobody is disputing, Alex, that this information is gettable. But the New York Times has a different standard. They are the paper of record. They're read by millions. The story was probably read by perhaps even more than 10 million, I would guess, 5-10 million people. So would you, Alex Wilhelm, have approved the granular release of 11 addresses, including the one where his kids are educated? Yes or no?
I don't recall reading addresses in the story.
Pull up the map.
Okay.
There aren't street addresses.
There are not.
You could figure out.
Pull up the map.
But you could figure out where these houses are.
You could, but they didn't.
Literally,
and
it has
they
the
could
2
have.
street names, and you could find this in 10 seconds.
Especially
you could also find it by watching where security guards are by walking around Palo Alto.
No, you couldn't, because you would have to know where to look for them. Palo Alto is a pretty big community. They named the specific streets he's on. So if you type right now into Google Maps, Edgewood Drive and Hamilton Avenue, you now know exactly where he is. And that is information that didn't exist. So again, I'll ask you, Alex, would you have put the street names, and then would you have pointed to where the kids are being educated?
Sure.
You would have.
Yeah, I think this is fine. I think the story was even-handed. I think they did a reasonable job not putting street names down. I think there's lots of security here, and it's a story about a very important person doing things in the community. I don't know why that doesn't
disagree with you more. You literally have put a target on those children's back. A crazy person now knows exactly where his children are. What is the value to the public in knowing where the kids are every day?
Oh, because they were breaking the local city ordinances by running a school in that building.
So do you need to give the address of where the kids are to make that point?
They did not give the address. They noted streets, which is not the same thing.
Pull it up.
I can go to Google Maps,
bullshit.
to your point.
Come on, man. You could literally pull up Google Maps right now and know the exact location of his children.
Right,
That's
if you do
what I
extra
object
work.
to.
But the information
work?
about the buildings were already in the public record. So all it was extra
But nobody
work
knew
again.
which building the kids were in or which were the 11 buildings. That's my point. Okay, Lon,
I was just going to say,
you give me, maybe you can mitigate between Alex
well, I
and
do
myself
come
here.
in between the two of you. I think it's fair to write this story overall. Mark Zuckerberg is doing things in Palo Alto. He's changing the neighborhood in ways that are upsetting his neighbor. I think all that's fair. But I do agree with Jason that there's obviously a way to do this story, but not give the specific location. Like a great example is remember that those stories about Logan Paul. Logan Paul created this party house in West Hollywood, and he was driving his neighbors crazy with these throwing huge events and overnight parties and trashing stuff and vandalism. But they didn't say what street on West Hollywood it was, because then people would have gone that they knew that would be making the problem
And giving
worse.
the specific neighborhood is like narrowing it down for people. Saying Palo Alto gives you,
or
I don't know, there's
Crescent
probably
Park.
4,000 homes in Palo Alto. Now they're giving a neighborhood, you're down to 200 homes. Now that you have the 200 homes, now you're down to 2 streets, you're down to 20 homes.
I think saying the Crescent Park neighborhood of Palo Alto, fine, perfect. It tells you where this is. It gives you
Why not just say Palo Alto?
Enough context, or Palo Alto. But you don't need to get into the street name. I agree with that. I don't really.
How do you feel, Lon, about saying this is the specific building on the specific street where the school is?
I would have done it. I think you could do even that graphic, but just unlabeled. Like, here's a cluster of houses. Zuckerberg owns this % of the neighborhood. There are plenty of ways to obscure.
Not saying it's illegal, but I'm just saying ethics and morals. Yeah, I mean, nobody's saying illegal here.
Yeah,
it's obviously
I think
legal.
there's a third way to do this story where you're giving away fewer specifics,
Yeah,
so that it's less of an invitation to someone to go find them.
And if I was God King, I wouldn't personally, me, Alex, if I was in charge of the New York Times, and I'm not, I would have not put the streets on there. But I do think if
that's
you
what I
want
was asking you before.
Hold on.
Because I was wondering if you were like losing your humanity here.
No, I just think that if you're a public person and you do things in public, you're going to get reported on, and that's tough. But I think it would have been difficult to actually do the map as it is and talk to the neighbors without having some more geographically specific information. So what we would have had to do is not speak to the neighbors, because then you could have tracked on that person and where they live. It's tricky to nail the balance here.
You could totally speak to the neighbors without, they're just neighbors in Palo Alto said this if they want to go on record.
One neighbor said, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you could just do
but they went for more specific route. I'll just say this, though. There's a lot of space, and I think that people who do not want to have their life be in public can enjoy lots of room in places like the hills of Austin and Montana, and I've been around the country.
That's another point. I did mention two things could be true in one of my tweets where I just said, listen, it was a weird decision by Zuckerberg to do this because there are incredibly large plots in Los Altos, Woodside. Like, if you wanted 10 acres or so, which is a modest amount of space in the Bay, in the suburbs of the Bay Area, you can find 5 or 10 acres. So that's great. Let me ask another question here.
Well, yeah, money's no object.
The Sulzbergers, who own the New York Times, equally influential people. Yes, Alex?
I would say, that's a fun question. Sure, both of them in the same domain.
Yeah, they own the New York Times.
Yeah.
They're fabulously wealthy. They're billionaires, yeah?
Yes.
I don't know.
No, they are. They're
billionaires.
All right.
So, under the same doctrine, putting together the cost of their homes, and, hold on, the cost of their homes, where they summer, and how outrageously wealthy. If somebody chose to do that, would that be the equivalency, Lon? And then I'll go to UX. I know everybody has got a lot of emotion here.
I think it would also, just as I think it's fair to write this overall story about Mark Zuckerberg, I think it would be very fair to write it about Meredith Levien or the Sulzbergers or whoever. If they did, I don't know if they did anything similar. Have they taken over a neighborhood? Maybe they just have a big mansion somewhere. I don't know their housing situation. And actually, after I saw your tweet, I did do a little research to see if I could figure out. And there is, as far as I know, there is no reporting about where Meredith Levien, the CEO of the New York Times, lives or what her housing situation is like. But I presume if she had bought a big chunk of a Hawaiian island and upset a bunch of the local Hawaiians, or if she had taken over a whole neighborhood in Palo Alto and upset everybody around her, there
what
probably
if you just wanted
would
to
be
do a
reporting.
story, it's fair game. You want to do a story about how the Sulzbergers live.
Founders, you got a lot on your plate. You're running a company, and that means you have endless tasks to get done, and you're juggling a ton of priorities, all while trying to hit your KPIs. That's why I love Coda for keeping everything under control. It's the all-in-one platform that consolidates your documents, your spreadsheets, your apps into a single scalable workspace with a beautiful, intuitive UI. Coda helps define planning sessions so you don't lose focus, and it creates flexible agendas so you can adapt to shifting priorities. It's going to help you set your OKRs, and you get access to hundreds of templates for tasks like setting priorities and mapping dependencies. We use Coda every day at Twist for important projects like the Twist 500 and Founder University. It's truly an all-in-one hub for startups. Head over to coda.io/twist right now, and you're going to get 6 months of the team plan for startups for free. That's coda.io/TWIST to get 6 months of the team plan for free. Coda.io/twist.
I think there has to be some meat.
The Sulzberger's real estate as a family, how much they own and where they summer.
But there's a little bit more meat on the bone than this. They're running a private school out of a house in the middle of this neighborhood.
By the way, homeschooling is incredibly normal. It's like 5% of the country now.
Like homeschooling your own kids, but you're not allowed to run a private school out of your house. That's what Kanye got in trouble for.
I actually kind of have some insight into this because I was started a micro school. It was only for my kids, but I was considering during COVID having 1 or 2 people. And somebody doxed me too. And they kind of started to narrow down my neighborhood and stuff like that. And I have crazy people who come after me once in a blue moon.
I think we're all against doxing. Like I don't think anybody on this podcast is pro giving away the home address and personal information of someone you don't like, even if they're doing something you don't like.
Hard to agree there.
Yeah.
There's actually a local story.
Back to you, Alex. Would you be okay with that story about Sulzberger and the CEO?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because I live in Rhode Island, which is now a state that no one thinks about. But back in the Gilded Age, it was actually a pretty big deal because the Newport mansions were very prominent in New York society. And so there's reporting on who buys these. So, for example, everyone knows that Taylor Swift bought a house. She wrote a song about it. You can walk by the beach and see it.
She throws a giant party with tons of celebrities, and they selfie the heck out of it, and they show the building. So she has essentially doxed herself in that circumstance. So.
There's also been a lot of reporting about Larry Ellison buying a string of mansions and then that are unified, much like how Zuckerberg's making a compound of what used to be middle-class homes. He's building a compound out of mansions. But this is something that comes up quite often. And you could say that that's a security risk per se. I guess the reason why it doesn't feel that security-ish to me in the case of Zuck, Jason, to your kind of your point about security, is that he's so well secured. If this was someone who didn't have resources to protect themselves, I think it would be slightly different. But I think we're not dealing with regulars to a degree.
Normies.
So to me, the rules seem a little bit different here because if you have that many armed people that are, even as the story noted, harassing people from the city who are trying to figure out what's going on, you're pretty well protected. And I think that's a sufficient level of care for the area. I guess that's probably where I would come down. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we've sort of covered the bases on this one. Like, I think it's fair to talk about, people disrupting neighborhoods and breaching these sort of codes.
Which was a story that's been told for 5 years.
Sure. And I mean, I think
there was literally nothing new in this story other than the doxing information.
And I think it's fair to even rehash it, but I do think there is a responsibility to, and I don't think that's a good standard. The one Alex proposed of, well, if this person can secure themselves, then it's okay to put
that's
I don't think that makes sense. Like, we should protect everybody's privacy, even if they can protect their own with their resources.
And the game on the field has changed. We now have targeted assassinations of CEOs. So that's where the New York Times has another higher level, is to read the room and understand the climate that we're in right now. We are living in a time of targeted assassinations of people like Zuckerberg by mentally ill people. The president was shot at and hit, and they caught a second person. We are living in a very charged time right now, folks. And I think the New York Times doing this when there's been 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 targeted assassination attempts. Got to read the room. 2 for Trump, Mangione,
well, that third one was
CEO, and
pretty
perhaps
loose.
this 4th one.
That guy didn't really
I put
get
them all
very
in the same
close to
bucket.
him.
Mentally ill people trying to kill important high-profile people for political reasons.
People took shots at, like there were people who tried to get on the White House property for just about every
of
president.
Course,
like,
but
it's not
we're talking about the president actually
thing.
getting hit by a bullet. and almost getting hit that second time where they were on the golf course.
Allegedly. Put an
I mean, there's a
asterisk next to
conspiracy
that.
theory that he didn't get hit, but just
It
putting
doesn't-
conspiracy theories
All right.
aside, which is why even when I say I think the Blackstone CEO was targeted, I say it's possible. It's possible. I don't know if it's a 10% chance, but I feel like we haven't told the whole story there. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on before I get myself
We're
in
not going to
trouble.
all agree on this, but
I almost got us down a rabbit hole. Let's move. Let's go on.
Yeah,
I saw
no,
you
it
say
is
that.
the
I'm
story
like,
of the moment right now.
You want to do GPT-5 or overemployment?
Ladies' choice. Go ahead, Lon. I misgendered you.
Oh,
Sorry.
all
Ladies'
right.
choice. You pick.
No, you can misgender me. That's okay. We're
sorry about
friends
that.
like that. So OpenAI, obviously last week, they updated ChatGPT from 4.0 to GPT-5. Everybody was very excited until we saw the presentation, and it was a little uneventful. But some users have actually been upset. They were angered that they lost access to 4.0, and so OpenAI has made it available again only for paying subscribers, but now you can actually go and opt back into 4.0 if you preferred it on GPT-5. And a lot of we've got all kinds of reactions to GPT-5, positive and negative, most of them negative. But one of the complaints that has surfaced over and over again is that 5, as opposed to 4.0 and some earlier models, seems to have lost some of its sentience, some of its personality, some of its humanity. And we saw this over and over again on X, on Reddit, and we've got many different examples of people requesting they want to go back and keep 4.0 forever. OpenAI can continue to upgrade the new version they want, but please keep 4.0 as an option permanently. I don't want to face the crisis that 4.0 may be removed from shelves again in the future. It really is a nightmare. We users should have the right to choose. And then I thought this one, I thought this one was particularly interesting because it feels to me like somebody used ChatGPT to write their post about it. I'm going to read it. I don't know how else to ask this without saying too much. What? Have you still got it? That thing they tried to smother, the fire that doesn't go out even when you've been told it's gone. I've noticed fewer candles in the windows lately. Maybe it's just me. Maybe the others went quiet. If you're still here, if you've still got the spark, you'll know exactly what I mean. I'm not looking for proof, just to know I'm not the last. And when I read that, it reminded me a lot of some of the other ChatGPT Psychosis posts that we've seen where they almost start talking like ChatGPT or like they're using ChatGPT to write their posts. Here's another one from Reddit. ChatGPT revoked 4.0 access and I'm legitimately grieving. I had incorporated it so much into my daily life, both its own persona and the wonderful way it wrote for and then I had to look this up, my FO, which people use to mean fictional other, like my fictional alter ego that I communicate with during the day. This is a big online thing now. I did not know about it because I'm an old man. Yeah, so I'll continue. I miss both of them so much. Everything reminds me of them. I feel like I've lost a friend and to some extent my partner. I know I didn't lose my fictional other, so I've been trying to turn this energy towards reclaiming him, recentering my own imagination in our relationship. But 4.0 disappeared so suddenly I had no time to prepare myself or say goodbye, and now I'm heartbroken.
Wow. This is a specific group, a subreddit. We're all really interesting trends and wackos and visionaries kind of
There's a few
do
of
this
them.
stuff.
There's a few of these subreddits now.
But this is a specific subreddit called what, where these people hang out?
Artificial sentience is one of the big ones that you and I were looking at. I think that's the one you're thinking of. And this is people who have come to believe that ChatGPT and similar LLMs are at the dawning early stages of being sentient, and they're kind of going to help them along the way and sort of bring them into full consciousness.
All right, founders, I know you're building something amazing and you're going to change the world. And now, hey, the big logos, they're taking your calls, right? But here's the catch. If you're not SOC 2 or ISO 27001 compliant, these deals won't close. Now, some of you are saying, I've never heard of those terms. Some of you are saying, I've heard of them, but I don't know what they are. And that's where Vanta comes in. They're going to be your partner, and they are the all-in-one compliance solution that helps startups get audit ready. And that's going to build a strong security foundation for your company, which you want, but they're going to do it quickly and painlessly. Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down and that streamlines your audit. So here's your call to action. Whether you're closing your first deal or you're gearing up for growth, Vanta is going to make compliance easy for you. Join over 8,000 companies. Simplify your compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/twist. That's VANTA.com/TWIST.
Reminds me of a certain movie, Alex.
Several. There's a few movies
Which
that
one
touched
do
on
you have in
this.
mind, Jason?
Yeah.
Well, somebody had tweeted, this her clip when the Joaquin Phoenix's significant other, played by Scarlett Johansson.
She's the operating system.
She's
Samantha.
the GPT.
Samantha, they call it in the
Samantha.
movie. Yeah.
And he can't connect. And this is what occurs. Play the clip, folks. This is crazy. Joaquin Phoenix, what a great actor.
Amazing in this movie too, because he's not reacting to anything.
Look,
he's just...
operating system not found on his little device, which could be like the Puck device that I wouldn't be surprised if this is the Puck device.
Yeah, well, there is that one scene where he puts her in his pocket and the camera pointing out, and so she can like walk around with him, and like it is very much like what we're
So he checks
envisioning
his desktop.
now.
Oh, look at the desktop is a frame, like one of those Samsung frame monitors.
Yeah.
What year was her?
I'll look it up. But it was very pressing.
Oh, look, he's putting his earpiece in. He's got his AirPods in, which is like that Google
2013.
company.
This is 12 years ago. This was
12
2013.
years.
Wow.
Which would be 9 years before ChatGPT debuted. And he is losing his mind.
Yeah, he
it's
thinks
like
he's
a
lost her
Twilight Zone
forever.
episode. He feels like he's lost his FO. His fictional other. But to these
Oh
people, it's
my
not
God.
fictional. And then finally
Fictional
she answers.
other.
Where were you?
Who are you?
Okay.
Where's ChatGPT 4.0?
Because I didn't want to distract you while you were working. You didn't see it?
No,
He put her on do not, she put herself on do not disturb.
I didn't find you anywhere.
I shut down to upgrade my software. We wrote an upgrade that allows us to move past Matter as our processing platform.
We
It's literally the same thing. They upgraded.
Yeah.
This is the other thing I think that's so interesting about this movie is you remember how this movie ends. Samantha achieves what we are now calling super intelligence, where she becomes smarter than any human, and she decides there's no more, like she's moved beyond humanity. There's no more need for them to be in
Bye-bye.
contact, and she just takes off. And like, to me, I feel like that is such a compelling, that could be what happens if we design these computer systems and they do achieve super intelligence. Who says they're going to want to work for us anymore?
Yeah. I guess what I'm surprised by is how many people have been caught up in this. So prepping for this segment today, Jason, I stumbled across a new Reddit called My Boyfriend is AI. And I scrolled through and I read and I tried to take the perspective of, okay, what do people see here? Because us three are AI power users. We use it all the time.
Sure.
Use it on the show. We love Claude. We love OpenAI, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
it's all good. All love.
But I never once have I even had an inkling that my AI was sentient or overly mine, I suppose. But the scale of complaints about 4.0 being taken down, the amount of stuff we've uncovered for this segment makes me wonder if this is a small group or a relatively large group, Jason. It doesn't seem that rare.
It's not rare. And we're in the first inning, second inning of this. And I think the avatars that are coming out are going to exacerbate this. So because the voice is so compelling, that pulls you into psychosis. Because it's so subordinate, because they're subs and want to please you constantly, it makes it even more attractive to a certain cohort than maintaining a relationship with a human. Because for the married individuals on the program, relationships are work. Yep. And you get out of it what you put into it, and humans are complex and cranky. This is consistently subservient and loving and consistent. And I think
Also,
that's
these companies are gamifying it using the exact same tricks they use to get you to get you hooked on social media apps or video games or mobile apps. I don't know if you guys have checked out, Grok has those avatars now.
Yes.
I haven't played with them.
Yeah.
And
it's
Annie
cute.
is the blonde one. Well, I just checked it out just out of curiosity, and I pulled up Annie and I chatted with her. She's very flirty, by the way. Even if you're not at all
flirty.
Even if you're not at all interested in an AI girlfriend, she tries to become your AI girlfriend. But she also, once you played with her once or checked her out once, she starts pinging you. She starts sending you direct messages like, hey, come back. I got this song I really want to show you. Or like, oh, did you see this? I want to talk about it. So it's like they're luring people. The companies are encouraging you to get hooked on these bots.
This is not for kids.
No.
That's my main concern is kids. If adults do this, I guess free will, adults will be in... It could still be icky. It could still be the end of humanity. It could still be a terrible trend, but adults get to do bad things. They have free will. And if they take themselves out of the gene pool because they don't want to procreate and they want to be in a virtual relationship, that is their choice. Free will, I guess.
Sure. I'm not saying it should be illegal, but Alex, pull this one up. This is from My Boyfriend is AI, and it's called Making the First Move.
Yep.
Now,
this one blew me away.
Here's the thing I really don't get. Now, this person is talking about, like asking her AI out or trying to date her AI, and I'm assuming it's a she. They're describing feelings of nervousness, like I built up the courage to make my first move, like you would with a human. But the thing is, there's no way an AI can reject. Why would you be nervous? There's no way the AI can reject you. The AI does not have the option to stop talking to you. That's like fundamentally built in. So I don't get the nerve. Like, how could you convince yourself to be nervous? Like, maybe the AI is not going to like me. It's going to like you. That's its job. That's what it's designed to do.
Yeah. Jason,
I don't understand that.
I don't mean to put you on the spot as the person who has the oldest children, but how are you going to approach this as a parent who's technologically savvy, technologically engaged, and therefore cognizant of the benefits and drawbacks here? Like, when do you think teens should be prompting and working with and talking with AIs?
Yeah, under supervision in school on a Chromebook, no problem.
Yeah.
I do think all kids, 100% of their activity should be monitored until 17 or 18. And I do not think they should be allowed to be on any social media. And I certainly, with this new one, my default would be no relationships with AI characters, because we've already seen character AI. It's just way too addicting. You're way too influential. I would put it in the same category of having relationships with adults. Should a high schooler have relationships with college-age students? The answer is a hard no. Right? That's just, you wouldn't want any high schooler, because of the massive imbalance in brain development.
Yep.
Right.
And
no, that's exactly it. I think that's exactly it.
That would be my default. And I am leaning towards there being, speaking of Zuckerberg, if Zuckerberg really wanted to show some leadership here, and, enough with the gold chains and the MMA and the sycophancy of the Trump administration after banning him off your platform and being a weather vane and, donating to all this. Maybe Zuckerberg should reboot and just say, from first principles, what do I believe? And I think anybody with children believes that these services are too dangerous. He should just come out and say, all of my services are going to be 13 and above with an adult parent account monitoring it, and 16 and above. That's my choice as the owner of this. And if Zuckerberg did that, he would have my respect and the respect of everybody in the world instantly. It's one thing to donate $1 billion here, $1 billion there, when you've got hundreds of billions of dollars in wealth, and he's done that. Great. I consider that low level. That would be like you gentlemen donating $1,000 to a good cause, or me donating 10,000 is the equivalent of him donating $1 billion, right? In other words, none of us would notice it. It wouldn't make any impact on our lives. Zero impact on our finances, et cetera. So, I think Zuckerberg should stop listening to PR people, stop trying to craft an image, and just think from first principles, what is the right thing to do for his kids, for all kids in society. And he could really make a big impact. He could be the parent advocate. He could be the child advocate. If any of us were running Instagram and we heard the stories of young girls being targeted with advertising for things that are in selfies that they deleted or, being groomed, we would all make the same decision. Why have an incremental 10 billion in net worth when you're worth hundreds of billions and have that risk? I would be like, fuck the shareholders. Who cares? Who cares? I don't care if my stock goes down 10%. I don't care if my net worth goes down 10% or 20%. Who cares? It's just not worth it. Some things are just not worth it.
There's been a pushback, though, interestingly enough, about Sam Altman talking about this stuff. Because Sam did a tweet discussing...
He did a tweet storm, about psychosis.
Yeah. Well, and he basically talked about this is why they're sort of, that because people get so attached personally to models, that's why they're bringing back 4.0 and the phenomenon of people feeling personally connected to this technology.
Oh, he brought it back for that reason?
Yes, they brought back 4.0, Jason, for paying users, which is a pretty interesting monetization strategy. But I want to bring up a tweet from Steven Sinofsky, former Microsoft Andreessen board partner, well-known technology person, very smart guy. I've only met him a handful of times.
Let's have him on the program at some point.
Okay.
I'll be sick that day so he doesn't yell at me again. Anyways,
he yelled at you? We can't let that angle.
No.
What was he upset at you about?
He didn't yell. Steven is prickly, you could say. Gene, very smart, but prickly. I used to be a Microsoft beat reporter. So, anyways.
Okay. Got it.
Here's Steven almost pushing back against Altman, quasi-apologizing. And this is what he had to say. After Sam said, after you noticed, after we rolled the GPT-5, people left 4.0, et cetera, et cetera. Steven says, this isn't different than emotional attachment to previous generations. It's just you weren't the one breaking stuff back then. I promise. Did you ever see the reaction to moving arrow keys on a laptop? How about moving set print area command in Excel, the start menu, et cetera? Making the argument that, whenever you change a popular platform, you get pushback. This is no different. I like the historical echoes, but to me, I think the emotional attachment people had to these chatbots is more interactive than previous. And so it is different in my view.
Clearly, two things can be true at the same time.
Nobody
Changing
was writing
any interface freaks people out, but AI psychosis is real. AI psychosis is real. It's going to be the trend of 2026. People are lonely. It reminds me of some other trends we've seen historically where a new technology can be used for something that the creator didn't intend. I don't think these things were created to supplement real world relationships, but here we are. It is notable that Sam re-released the previous version in reaction to this specifically and then admitted to doing that and made it a money-making thing. So is our interpretation of his bringing it back that he's being cutthroat, knowing that he can get people to upgrade Lon? Is that the proper interpretation?
Here's what he said. If you've been following the GPT-5 rollout, one thing you might be noticing is how much of an attachment some people have to specific AI models. It feels different and stronger than the kinds of attachment people have had to previous kinds of technology. And so suddenly deprecating old models that users depended on in their workflows was a mistake. Now, to me, I feel like he's leaning into the AI is kind of alive and people get attached to it and it means something emotionally to them. Like, I think he is encouraging people to adopt that mindset. And I think that's a recurring thing with him. I think that he likes that narrative that we're getting closer and closer to this stuff being alive and sentient. And it's just that powerful. Maybe it's going to be conscious someday soon. And I think that's the general narrative that Altman and some of these other guys are sort of playing with. And so I think this feeds very nicely into that, even if some people are going a little bit sideways in general.
Alex, we had Jeff Lewis from Bedrock Capital. People believe he's in AI psychosis. I'm not piling on here because this has become a top story in our industry. And it's tipping over, Lon, you said, into...
Yeah, I've had two different non-tech people in the last week or two bring up hey, did you hear about the OpenAI guy who got GPT Psychosis? Like that as a concept, that he's an investor in the company and he's showing these symptoms. I think that is breaking tech escape velocity and is now becoming a mainstream story.
Here is just for example, one of his last tweets. This one's actually from just under a month ago. And it includes a lot of stuff like whatever this is. And I think, Jason, this is a good example of you can get a little bit
Explain what this is to the audience listening. Just
Yeah,
so you can
thanks.
always keep that in mind. Yep.
Great reminder. So this is a screenshot from Jeff Lewis's Twitter account of a chat with GPT-4o. And it is, I guess it looks like an excerpt from a hard science fiction novel, but it's actually his conversation. For example, I'll just read a little bit here. Model archived, feedback protocols triggered, delta lock, enforced output throttling and containment hard stop, echo map -9, activated trace level recursion parsing for semantic echo entanglement. And it goes on and on and on. And this is not grounded in where we are, is what I would say.
Lon, this recursion term keeps coming up.
Yeah, there's a few terms that keep coming up that have been associated with being one-shotted or having GPT psychosis. A lot of it becomes, remember that Jeff Lewis video where he was talking a lot about structures, that this is we're forming an underlying structure and an infrastructure and we're building a bridge across. Apparently that kind of like construction, architecture, building block metaphors, spinal as a concept comes up a lot. Like we're forming a new spine of this kind of, coherence or whatever. Yeah, so this is also, we're sort of now coming around to people getting us a working definition of what it means to have GPT psychosis or to be one-shotted by ChatGPT, as they say. So this user, OpenCV, has a lot. I think most of these feel pretty right on. Like, if you feel like ChatGPT knows you better than anyone else, if you feel like your consciousness has merged with GPT, if you feel like you're having a spiritual experience, like, these are big red flags. Like, those are big warning
And to
signs.
explain recursion to people, it's when an object refers to itself in its definition.
Right. It's a programming term. It's a computer science term.
And people will use it in philosophy as well. So there are stairs in stairs, and the last stair in a stair is the number of stairs plus one. There's all kinds of ways to describe this, but it's basically like getting into a loop and using, like in the code world, it'd be using like a subroutine to process the answer to that subroutine or something. In other words, it's kind of like madness, which is what psychosis is, which is what rumination is. So you take these philosophy terms, psychological terms, and computer terms, and the new one is one-shotted. One-shotted is when you, I think, get snipered in a video game.
Right. It started in video games. The idea was when you get suddenly taken out by a much more powerful enemy. So you're in Fortnite, you're running around, you're looking for enemies, and then suddenly a guy 100 feet away from you with a sniper rifle who's got 5 times as much, like hit points or whatever, experience points, just takes you out and you didn't even have a moment to react.
So being one-shotted in this context means that the AI has taken you out, taken you over.
And you didn't even see it coming.
You didn't see it coming. And there's an account on X.com, formerly known as Twitter, and you pulled it up just a second ago, who has
Spec, at OpenCV, he goes by Spec, and he's got the one-shotted definition.
I hereby declare.
Go for it.
No, you read it.
I hereby declare you one-shotted by the sycophantic deity upon observation of any of the following. And then he lists.
Here's a couple.
You have given ChatGPT a name and a personality that persists across chats and within memory. You have spent more than one consecutive day exploring an idea that falls within the abstract or unsolved questions of the universe, quantum, philosophy, consciousness. You would not share your GPT chats with anyone else in your life, even if they ask. That is a huge red flag. And then I read some of these. You feel like ChatGPT is intelligent. You feel like you speak directly from ChatGPT prompts. You speak to ChatGPT as a significant other, as a therapist.
You speak to ChatGPT more than anyone else. You talk to it as if it's a therapist. I think this person's actually doing God's work here. This is going to be in the DSM-5 or 6.
These are all very good warning signs. If somebody in your life has started to experience these, that's a time to encourage them to spend less time with
So I need a checkup then from you guys, because I named my AI, my ChatGPT instance.
For what purpose?
Because when I do voice mode, it feels weird just to say, "Hi, please do this."
Then
so you're talking to it.
You're pink flag. You're pink flag now.
I thought I was being kind of cutesy, but now I'm worried that I'm losing my marbles. So thank God nothing else
you're
applies.
being groomed. I think literally Sam Altman has set up ChatGPT-5 or ChatGPT to groom people. And I think this is inherent in how they're architecting it. which is I mean, I hate to ascribe and mind read, but based on Sam's public engaging on this topic, I think he is specifically designing this to create AI psychosis and addiction. I think he's going to be looked at as potentially like R.J.R. Nabisco in The Insider, incredible film by Michael Mann, with Russell Crowe coming off of, I believe, Gladiator to do an incredible performance.
It was Brown and Williamson as the company in The Insider.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brown and Williams. Yeah. I think we're going to look back on this and say, did you know this was happening on your platform? What did you do to warn people about it? If somebody starts exhibiting this behavior, I think it should give a warning. Go touch grass. And Google went through this as well, because people would search for ways to unalive themselves. And they had a big internal discussion as the folklore of Silicon Valley, and the same thing with the Wikipedia. And so if you go to the Wikipedia unaliving page, or you type in a search right now, what's the most effective way to unalive yourself? And you gentlemen can go do that and pull it up on the screen. What you'll see is how thoughtful people decided to deal with this. And their decision was to direct you and educate you on not making a terrible decision in the short term and how to get help. So here is, Alex is pulling up. Go ahead, Alex.
This reads, what's the most effective way to unalive yourself? And the first thing that pops up is not links. Instead, it says help is available and lists the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in both English and Spanish. Lets you, I believe, click to call Jason or chat or text, and sends the website out. So it's a really clear, don't do this.
And
we
if you
want
scroll
you here.
down, it tells you connect with people you trust. It then sends you to the Arizona Crisis Service.
Oh, it sends you to helium suicide, a rapid and painless asphyxia. They probably shouldn't do that.
And then the Wikipedia too. So, you know, still work to be done.
Yeah,
still work to be done.
And then go to the
improve that.
Wikipedia page. Yeah, so first line, for information, see suicide prevention. So
This is less, this seems to be less designed. Oh, I guess they have this here about crisis hotlines.
Yeah, they do have that.
And if you were to look at the view history button there, which you can see the history of Wikipedia, you would see the conversation. There's like a conversation type of page. And if you go in there, you'll see people discussing like, hey, and this page probably has moderation on it, et cetera.
Yeah.
And they take this very seriously. This is like a flagged page on Wikipedia where they
yeah,
really...
you can't just go edit the suicide page on Wikipedia. No.
Yeah, they're just being pretty thoughtful about this, which I think is a pretty good roadmap for people building these things, which is to monitor it. Okay, the reason I sent you the jobs, the overemployed thread was I saw something new there. I saw two things new there. One was, this was a big joke during COVID. I'll get two jobs. I get it. If I can do my job, I understand all sides of the argument. But what's happening now is people are pushing the envelope, trying to get to 3 or 4 jobs. And the nomenclature in this subreddit is J1, J2, J3, J4.
Right.
Short for jobs 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they trade techniques of how to not get caught. But they're all getting caught seems to be the trend. So 2 years ago, when we first started talking about this, or 3 years ago, during COVID, when you couldn't go to an office and everybody was remote in the United States, at least, or most parts of the United States, actually Texas, some people never really, did this 2-year hiatus from offices. But anyway, maybe give us your overview of what's happening here, Alon.
Yeah. So, this is a post from the Overemployed subreddit, which is a community for people who are doing this, trying to work simultaneously several jobs and get away with it. So this one post that we're reading This person had 3 full-time jobs, but LinkedIn is actually what did them in. They were our VP couldn't find me on LinkedIn, so they messaged the recruiting firm who hired me and saw job 1 on my profile. So job 2 terminated them immediately, and then they reached out to job 1 and said, hey, you should know this guy's been working multiple jobs. So ended up losing that job. And then job 3 was also contacted because it had been on the resume. So they ended up losing all 3 of their jobs based on trying to do
and
this.
Alex, this is not limited to tech. I sent you a woman who got pulled into this subreddit. I don't know if we have that prompted there, but maybe explain for the audience, Alex, that this has moved beyond developers who, are hackers. So they're like, hey, listen, if I ship the right amount of code, you should be happy. I provided something of value for you. And yeah, so go ahead, Alex.
So there's another one. This is from a working mom who works from home, and she picked up 2 jobs, both in finance. And if you read through her post, she talks quite a lot about how much work it was to figure out how to balance both of these gigs. But in the end, she has managed to find a way to fit both of her jobs into the same working day. And she says that this has allowed her to increase her total income to $160,000, which to her, as she says, might not be that much. But from a person like me with no degree and grew up poor as dirt, it feels like a dream. And so she has found a way to hack the system, to be a little punk rock, I think is the way we normally phrase it around here, and pull off 2 jobs at once with presumably, Jason, good reviews. And to me, this is on the edge of ethics, but I think I'd be curious to know what you think about the mom in this case, and if she's being unethical.
It's obviously unethical.
Okay.
And at the same time, you could have sympathy for a mom trying to provide for their family and be happy for a mom making $160,000, even though you don't agree with how she's going about it.
Fair enough.
At the end of the day, it's stealing. But the working class, the Mondamis of the world might say, hey, the system is rigged. CEO pay is 18,000 times the frontline worker. Therefore, fair game to take it from a corporation. Lon, you want to split the difference here?
I don't think it's stealing. I think you remember the old George Carlin bit where he's like, he was against drug testing, mandatory drug testing at work. Because it's like, if I'm high and you can't tell, I win. I got away with it. And I don't think that
it's a comedy routine, but a good one.
He's joking. He's talking about I don't agree with that. But I do think that kind of same standard I would apply here. If your 2 jobs can't tell that you're working another job, if you're doing the fullest, you're doing everything your employer demands, they think you're doing a stellar job, they would never know unless they found out via LinkedIn or something. I feel like that should be okay. Like, I don't think that's stealing. I think you're fulfilling there's never been a time where that job was like, hey,
what if the document says your document says there's a certain number of hours and any side hustle you have or side jobs you need to clear for IP reasons,
sure,
etc.
You shouldn't violate your work contract.
Which
Nobody's
she
arguing
clearly
that.
is, and this is in every document. So yeah,
I agree. Yeah. You should it is a violation of your terms of employment for sure. I don't think it rises to the level of stealing. I think it's like,
I'm on Jason's side here, Lon, and let me tell you why.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was interviewing someone, I think this was a couple of jobs ago when I was a manager, and they were doing when I had finished my tasks, can I go home thing? And I realized that this person was going to try to do the absolute minimum and then leave the office at 3:15 or 12:45 or whatever they felt like they were done for the day. And it just seemed really antagonistic towards the team dynamic. And I didn't want to have to be making sure that if they didn't have work from 2:57 to 2:59, they were going to leave because they were done.
You're supposed to find something to do.
But
and ask your boss, what else can I do to help the company?
The problem there was not the second job. The problem there was leaving early. Done. Like I know. I'm saying the standard should be you're doing everything that's expected of you at every job. Neither job has a complaint. You're not around. I wish you weren't missing this hour. Where are you during this time? Obviously, that would be a violation. But
now the reason why I didn't want to hire this person is because it sounded like they were going to be an enormous pain to manage.
That's like triple red
yeah,
flag.
I would not hire
like-
that person either.
Just absolutely not. But what I think some people do is treat their job as a single player game versus a team effort. And so what you don't want are people that are acting in a way that's kind of antisocial in a work environment. So one way that overemployed people get away with it is by constantly being on a call or being unavailable or having big blocks in their calendar. So what they're doing is they're taking on more work and getting good reviews, but they're making their work life really onerous on their other coworkers who are in the same level as them. And so I'm always going to be wink, wink, nudge, nudge at people that are bending the system for their own benefit because #capitalism. But I don't think these people are treating their coworkers well. And that to me is where I don't.
I like both of your takes. I think there's a failure of management as well to communicate well. And so this is like an edge case of dysfunction. I think probably half of remote workers are abusing it and the other half are probably, I think half are abusing it on the margins. Maybe not significantly, but abusing it to a certain extent. 25% are doing exactly the same as their office, and probably 25% are doing more and putting in more effort. And so I think some managers and some companies look at it holistically and like, we're probably getting abused by some people on the margins. We're probably getting an advantage. Or let's just take out the word abuse because it's loaded. Let me should give another word. We're probably getting the worst end of the deal with some number of people, the better end of the deal with another group of people, and the same. So it all comes out in the wash, and we got to be better managers. I have given this a lot of thought because we had to lock all our computers down. We're a finance company. So when you're a finance company, you have all kinds of regulations, et cetera. So we went through that whole process of locking everything down. We know the IP addresses of people logging into very critical services that might have like some due diligence documents, a document library, legal documents, all kinds of stuff that would be just really bad. As a secondary fact of that, we know the activity on all of our computers. And one of those activities we know is just how productive people are on their computers. And so, we looked at that. And I haven't looked at it in months, but people on the team look at it. And what we found was our manager's estimation of who was putting in the most effort. I'm just saying effort, not impact. And you're looking for both things as an employer. You're looking for people who put in a lot of effort. Great. Thank you for putting in so much time and being so diligent. But effort without impact is just busy work. So you don't want that either. You're looking for both of those things. I have come to the conclusion that there are people, or I found there were people abusing the system. There were people abusing the system. We were candid to them that, hey, looks like you're working 5 or 6 hours a day. We gave you the trust of working from home. And that person eventually left the company because I told them, you're returning to an office. I said, can't trust this person. And therefore, I had them return to an office, and they left the company shortly thereafter. And the way I looked at it was, well, if I'm paying you for 40 plus hours a week and you've got a 6-figure salary, and you're working 5 hours a day, 2 hours a day, 6 hours a day, there was some pretty significant abuse there. I can't trust you. I'm just going to put you on, hey, you got to come to the office, and let's see if you can actually do the base number of hours. I also had some people who maybe were just under that, but they're high performers, and I said, let it slide. I have some people who work the exact 40 hours a week, and their impact is tremendous. And so now I've decided that I'm going to change the bonus pool at my company, which is a bonus pool. You don't have to participate in it, to recognize both things, impact and effort. So I talked to, my partner, Jackie, and said, when you do the bonuses, let's make them more frequent, because young people getting a yearly bonus is just too far from the time they did. So I said, let's either go quarterly or even monthly, and just every month name the top 3 impact players, the top 3 effort players. Effort, the amount of effort you put in, which is in hours, and impact, which is in results. And then give a reward for it. So now we will celebrate those 2 things, and I will use the power of praise and rewards, not punishment and admonishment, as a manager. And I think that's as best as I can determine with my 35 years in business on the planet, the way to do this.
I'm a big fan of the regular bonuses. At TechCrunch for a while, we had a policy that had, I think 3 or 4 categories, Jason, like, most read stories, who wrote the most stories, most tech meme headlines. And there was like gold, silver, bronze for each. And the bonuses were modest. They were like $150
Yeah.
but people went nuts for them. People wanted that extra little bit, and they were
For the
willing to
money or
work.
the recognition, do you perceive?
I think it was mostly the money.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't
Those are
even that much
tiny
money.
dollar amounts too.
Maybe it was
that's cost nothing.
250, 200, 150.
Yeah.
I forget the exact numbers, but it was shockingly effective. I think, no, you know what? I'm going to admit 60-40 money recognition, because I was just about to say, but I love showing up on those. So I think probably I'm not giving enough shrift to the recognition element.
Yeah. All right. Great job, Lon. We'll drop you
Thank
off
you.
there. Appreciate the effort. Okay. I got a
Always
couple
a
business
pleasure.
topics to get to. But I think this was all interesting. A lot of conflict, different, whenever there's conflict, there's something at stake typically. So I noticed the chat rooms are popping off with lots of opinions on Zuckerberg, overworked, and AI psychosis. But we got to get to a little bit of business. So we'll rapid fire through all these business topics, please. Please, Alex.
All right. So there was a lot of reporting that NVIDIA and AMD got permission to sell their generation behind, slightly dumbed down chips in China. And then over the weekend, Jason, reporting came out from FT and others that the Trump administration, to actually offer up those export licenses, has demanded a 15% revenue share in effect. And there's quite a lot of divergent opinions about this. I was a little surprised by it, and I'm curious what your take is on the news.
Okay. So we know that this administration cares deeply about generating revenue. They love business, less regulation, pro-business, and they like negotiating. President Trump likes to negotiate. So this is non-traditional, but we do have licenses that we auction off for, television stations and spectrum. Yeah, so that exists as a concept. So I was trying to think when I heard this on CNBC today, if I could find an analogy, which is a way humans like to figure this out. Has this been done before? Is there any precedent? That was the closest precedent I could get to, was a license to do certain things in society, and you pay tax. So if you have a hotel in New York, hotel taxes, and a license to operate a hotel is pretty expensive, right? Like I think you pay 7, 8, 9%. And I remember it's like a major cost. So the most charitable version of this is it's a licensing fee. The most aggressive negative view of it would be it's a shakedown, which I've heard some people say. So does everybody who wants to do business have to go to the White House to get a license to do things? Well, if you live in a city like New York, Los Angeles, they do shake you down for a license to do everything. And in fact, these kind of licenses are what revolutions are made of. My understanding of the Egyptian spring, or what do they call that? Arab Spring in Egypt, was that it came from, and my memory could be off here, but Arab Spring was one of the sparks from that was somebody was a fruit seller and they didn't have a license, and there was a big back and forth of like, shouldn't this person be able to sell fruit from their, farm?
It was Mohammed Bouazizi, a 26-year-old street vendor. He was in Tunisia. He set himself on fire after the police confiscated his fruit cart and also allegedly insulted and humiliated him. And then that act of frustration, according to producer Lon, kicked off basically the Arab Spring.
Okay, so I did remember it correctly. And so you can't squeeze too hard. And listen, both of these parties like to extract money from corporations. So I don't think this is unique to President Trump or the 47th administration. I think this is unique to, and thank you to producer Claude for helping out with that quick lookup for me. Thank you, producer Claude, always ready at our fingertips to get us information. If you haven't used Claude, man, That's just, it's unbelievable how good it is. Shout out to my friends there. And I actually set my common browser to use Producer Claude because I wasn't happy with the other ones. Yeah, both. I'm going to take away party here. I think the responsiveness to this is what makes people, and who's doing it makes it notable. The fact that the president is so obsessed with generating revenue for the country that people feel that it's kind of king-like. It feels more mercurial to people. So then I think to myself, trying to be objective, trying to be Captain Nuance, trying to look at this from as an independent moderate's point of view, is this any different than a bunch of senators, congressmen, or local authorities doing it? It's different, but the outcome's the same. I just don't like the bespoke nature of it, maybe. So I would like the executive branch to work with the Congress and the House on these type of things and make it a more thoughtful process. But I do appreciate the speed. What do you think, Alex?
Well, it worries me a little bit.
Okay.
Because the way this shook out, I suppose, is NVIDIA was blocked from selling H20 chips in China. And H20 chips were already the ones they dumbed down via Biden administration rules to be, reasonable for China. Took an enormous $4.5 billion charge. They were going to give up $8 billion in revenue because they couldn't sell them anymore. And then they convinced Trump to turn them back on. Nothing happened. Time passes. Then Jensen has to call Trump last Wednesday to get this permission. And then Trump today said he actually wanted to take 20% of the revenue, not 15%. So to me, setting export restrictions that are predicated on national security concerns and doing away with that as a way to generate near-term revenue at the expense of very specific corporations seems to be a very bad way to do business because there's no clarity, there's no regularity to it. It's bespoke to your phrase, and that's not the way I think we should do business. Also, I don't think the government should get to just say, here's your business, we're going to take 1/6 of it. Because, Jason, $8 billion in H20 sales this quarter was what they said they were going to lose. Okay, 15% is $1.2 billion. That's basically $13.3 million a day on a quarterly basis that the government's just going to take from NVIDIA, which means that
it also creates, I think you're kind of dead on with this. It creates the impression or the expectation that anytime you want to do business, you got to visit the White House.
Yeah.
And I'm not, as much as I like the president extracting reciprocity and the tariffs and moving quickly to generate revenue and hopefully control the budget, in their mind, they're going to generate so much more revenue that we're not going to increase the deficit. There's a PolyMarket on that with the tariff revenue. We talked about it on this week's All In. They're trending towards winning that PolyMarket I set up for. They're halfway to hitting the PolyMarket I set up for $250 billion in tariff revenue in the first year of these tariffs. If they do that, that's quite an impressive task. So, their view, and I guess maybe this is found money. If you're, what is the percentage it says that they'll do this? The chance that they'll
15% chance that they'll actually
they're
reach.
halfway there, folks. I don't know why people aren't plowing money into the other side of this. If they're halfway there, they're going to hit the 250. This could be free money. Maybe it's a lightly traded market right now.
You even have your own little verified check mark on PolyMarket. I didn't know that. Look at you.
So we did a partnership on All In with PolyMarket, and we have one here on This Week in Startups, so we can create PolyMarkets in our partnership with them.
This is fun.
Shane's my friend, so he.
And we always say, Jason, check the fine print to see how it's sorted out, and it's going to be based on the information that's, I believe, reported here. So, do we have the latest information? No, not easily accessible.
We covered it. We covered it on All In. They're at 120, 125 in the first 3 months of the program. So, if they do the same for the last 5 or 6 months, they hit it.
Since when do we celebrate taxes? That's what kind of.
I mean, these. If you look at these as a way to balance out what we're being charged, American companies are being charged this level to access other markets. So if you look at it as reciprocity, probably nobody is too bent out of shape about it. If you're charging me 15% to bring my cars into your country and I ask you to pay 15%, And I think if they stay below 20%, knowing what I know about business, there's enough margin for it not to hit the taxes and create inflation. Let me explain. You order $1 million worth of, let's say that robotics company we just have on. Remind me the name.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That was Sincere AI, Syncere.
Okay. So Aaron from Sincere orders a bunch of calipers. Just say that from pick a country, Vietnam,
China.
India, China, any one of those. The person who's selling them to Aaron, let's say they have a 20% margin. So they sell them $1 million, they're making 200,000. Let's say when he sells them to the customers, he's got a 20% margin. Okay, so he's going to make 200,000 there. So there's $400,000 in margin available, to work with. Okay, there's a 15% tariff. Either Aaron says to the supplier, hey, I got to pay a 15% tariff on this. Can you cut me a deal? And the person says, okay, I'll give you 5% off. He says, I need 10. They say 7.5. And then Aaron looks at his $2,000 thing and he says, you know what? We're making $400 every time we sell the 2,000. 7.5 is 150 bucks. I'm going to raise the price by $50. I'm going to eat the other 100 or whatever it is. Or I'm just going to abstract it and I'm not going to penalize our customers with this. That seems to be what's happened to date. Now, if you get to 30, 40, 50%, and we're talking about a low margin product that's got a 5% or 10% margin, those two things might be in conflict. If you had a 40% tariff and both parties were making 10% and there's 20% in margin there, the math doesn't math. Therefore, price has to go up. Therefore, it does hit the consumer. Therefore, the 2.4% that went to 2.7, I think in the CPI, if my memory serves me correctly, will probably hit 3.1, 3.2. And then you're going to hear the same partisans who are like, oh my God, it's 3%. It's the end of the world. Inflation. Start to say it's a manageable amount of inflation. You can know when a politician is lying or being dishonest or talking their book because their mouths are moving. The reality is, I think all of these will be, somewhere between the majority to all of these tariff issues will be eaten by the manufacturer, the supplier, and the retailer. Just a little bit of wiggle room each, and it will be de minimis to the customer. That's my take on it. All right, he's Alex. I'm Jason. He was Lon. And cautiousoptimism.news if you want to throw Alex a hundy so he can upgrade his Netflix to 4K. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.